for that.
So you're telling me that all this time I've been sold a lie and that I'm in some kind of a matrix and that everything they told me is a fucking lie?
That's pretty spot on.
Really?
Well, when you say they, are you talking about the school system? You're talking about your government? Talking about the lawmakers, the religious leaders, the politicians? They? Yeah, that's what they mean.
Everything's a lie.
Pretty much.
Where do I go from here?
In. Stop looking for other people to tell you what to do. Right? Connect to God, yourself, source, and go in. Just you and God, loving His children, your brothers and sisters. Those are the only two things you gotta. That's the truth, right? That's coming from a place of love. And then all the other stuff, you don't have to really. So, does this resonate? Does it make sense? Does it sound too free?
It sounds way simpler than my mind wants to make it. And like, so if I'm in the matrix and I'm on the 40-year plan.
40 years of wandering in the desert?
Yeah.
It's time to go into the kingdom of heaven.
Okay.
The promised land, as it says in the Old Testament.
So let's say that in my old self, like, let's say I'm on that 40-year-old plan, and then I'm going to get a retirement and live my life, the rest of my life, like happily ever after, like. And now you're telling me that all of that is a lie, that the schools are a lie, the medical system. Like, I'm sitting here, I'm like, what in the fuck, Bradley? Like, where am I? Did I just get dropped off somewhere? Like, I don't even fucking know where I am because I feel like everything's been a lie. So now you're telling me to go within, and what I'm hearing is that I'm a child of God. I'm just gonna assume that because I still don't know. I'm a newbie right here, like,
Yeah.
you know. So
you're a child of God connected to God.
okay.
And you don't have to run the program that you've been taught by your parents, by the schools, by the licensed professionals. And we just woke up and that's where we were in the middle of this licensed world. And we just did all that shit. Because that's where you woke up. And your parents were teaching it to you. Now consciousness is rising on the planet. We're waking up out of this stupor of thinking that that's the only way to be. And when we connect to God through things like lands, which help, right? The vibrational frequency, the spirit clean up, sanctuary clean up. So that they've kept us away from all that through their licenses and their prescriptions and their laws and rules. So we couldn't be conscious.
How would you define like conscious and define or distinguish or like when you look at conscious, like, all right, so you could look at it like consciousness is being suppressed, or there's a movement to keep people keeping them unconscious. So then with proper nutrition and vitamins and minerals, there's like a potential to awaken, to be more conscious. So like, how do you distinguish like conscious?
Aware of the connection to God, like aware that we are witnessing God through these individual bodies outside of us. Like your awareness of the way that God sees the world. This is like then it's a scale. So like I like to use the David Hawkins scale. Christ consciousness. It was on a slideshow presentation that I didn't get to show this morning. I never even came into the conversation, but I was going to speak to this. So this is perfect. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. And so as we grow closer to Christ consciousness, which is knowing that everything is love and that you and your Father are connected at the heart level, that there is no separation, that you've done nothing wrong, He loves you. Like this is consciousness. And the more you understand that, the more you realize that this is a dream. This is the facade designed to help us come more whole into that consciousness of the Father. We're all family. Like we're all from the same Father.
And it's really the illumination of truth. And I think like with the illumination of truth, it's also like seeing like natural law, like or divine law, or like what actually has when a leaf decomposes and it creates organic matter and nutrition goes in the soil, like what actually has that happen? Like what are the things that are occurring that we some of it we do see, but there's most of it we don't see, which is where little buddies, the microbes come in and the mycelium networks to affect these components, and where seeing that connection where that natural law is, I see that as the degree that we're literally tuned into how things actually work, energetically, spiritually, and that affecting physicality. Then I see our ability to navigate that with ease and grace and flow. Then I see that as being conscious or more conscious, like as an expression of natural law, as in like literally an expression of how things work. And there's this component which is love, and it's the connective tissue, and it's the fascia, and it's also the field. See, it's communicated like, all right, well, here's me and there's you, but you is an illusion and so is me, and we're taught that there's space between you and me, and space doesn't exist. Fullness is what is. So we're in this fullness of reality, of absolute connection. And that's where when I remember oneself, when we remember oneself of who I am, of that connection, and then we live by how it actually operates, that is an expression of consciousness.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. Aware of how all the things work together in harmony. Which it kind of says, kind of like if I were trying to say back a little bit about what I heard you say, like all the things around us working in harmony in ways that we can begin to understand, let alone see. We don't even see. I mean, see, let alone understand them all. Just perfect. And then we're right, and like there's never a problem. There's never nothing happening that's not supposed to be happening. Consciousness would recognize. I mean, when you're conscious, this is how you see. That's the lens with which you kind of see what's happening around you. Does that kind of make sense? Like seeing how natural law and nature and all the elements work together at the same time, both in the physical, what we call physical realm and the spiritual realm, unseen realms. Just unfolding because they're unfolding.
Yeah, and there's one component in there where I think it's related to the understanding of like, and the embodiment of it. Like it's interesting because you can't not embody natural law, but like you can like choose to not be congruent with it, which is where like the hiccups and the bumpy ride comes in, and the
Disharmony.
the slaps across the face, and so, but even then, all those slaps across the face and the disharmony is an expression of natural law, guiding a being or a soul or a human or whatever, towards balance, towards wellness. So we just can create the illusion for ourselves that we're not being affected by natural law, but it doesn't matter if we create that. We're always being affected by it. And so then
You're saying we're affected by the illusion?
By God's divine
Okay.
law, what God create, which natural law in this case would be God's word, and it's not entirely just God's word, but it is that's a component of it, and it's how things like work. And so when we are the embodiment of the natural law, and we actually like be it and express it, then that is an element of
Conscious.
yeah. So what I'm speaking to is the embodiment and the expression of it, and really bringing awareness to that, because if we know natural law, so we just know it in our brain, and we're thinking about it, that's great, but there's action that comes. So if the thinking about it is like, if you're in your head, you're dead, conversation where it's like being up here is you can have a brain, but you don't want to be stuck in it. You can use your brain, but you don't want to like just always be in your thoughts, unless you do. And then if you want to always be in your thoughts, congratulations. And that is an option. It just depends on what we focus on. And so this embodiment of the and the expression specifically of natural law, that expression is where it is alive, and it's in motion, it's dynamic, and that's where change actually happens.
I feel like you just there's a very important distinction that you just mentioned. So in the old world, in the matrix, we're taught to live on our heads, and that system, the legal system, is all up in the head, and that's where they imprison us in the matrix, is up here. And when we know who we are and whose we are, this is now on the other side. And actually going back to the matrix side, like I felt like I was there, the system's bitch, and I literally was. I cowered. I didn't have any pride in what I was doing. I didn't have any purpose. But then I came down to Costa Rica and I met these beautiful people. And I'm like, holy fuck, like I am a child of God. Okay, I'm going to start walking, talking, and speaking and being like a child of God. And then this being shows up in my reality. And now it's like, okay, there's a whole nother way of being, that what comes out of my mouth actually manifests. And that's what the gift that you have is, that I'm just really grateful for, and the articulation of exactly what Neil was saying is natural law, rather than being caught up in the legal system where you're supporting greed and war and poverty and death and child trafficking, sex trafficking. And when you listen to this man, and when you listen to this man, and you tune in to channels like this, you start becoming something other than just a cog in the fucking machine.
How do you know what direction you're going, or what orientation you're moving in? Like, are you moving in the direction of the matrix, or what? Like, what's another option? Like, literally, someone living in the matrix might not even know there's another option.
Well, if you're watching this video,
like, how do you even know where you're at?
Well, for me, you want to answer that?
go for it.
For me, there's examples of, like, if you're plugged into a corporation, if you're running an LLC, if you're You know, you got your traditional bank account. If you're a taxpayer, like, you know, you're trying to own things. You say, hey, I'm the owner. You want liability?
Yeah, but
you cover insurance.
that's how you like have something, right? Like you need
No,
to
no,
own
this is
it.
how you know you're plugged into the matrix.
Oh, I see.
This is how you know that you're not moving towards natural law or divine law.
Okay.
You're like plugged into the man-made system.
Yeah.
That's the beast. That's the slave system. It's built for extraction. It's built for profits, Profit, and not the other, you know, divine law would have profit, it's PHRO. How's that spelled?
PH.
The other type of prophet, right? Like
Yeah.
a messenger of God.
Yes.
Wow.
Right? See how they play with the words?
Wow.
See how they play with these words?
Can
They
you
make
just-
us.
Can you just say that again and spell it out for?
I can't. I'm so. Oh, didn't we have the conversation about spelling last?
Yes,
We touched on
So
it.
you know I don't want to spell the word, but I can distinguish it because I can't get
Yeah.
the spellings right.
Yeah.
No, we touched on it. I think we went
Okay.
deep about the spelling
We,
lessons
we did go into
and how the
it, yes.
school doesn't like the school. Yeah, they mistrain us in our ability to create with our words and manifest our reality by messing us up by having us focus on spelling the words right as opposed to getting the meanings right. Like when do they talk to you about that? You know, like you just spell the word right. What do you mean by that word? Well, I don't know. There's only 3 definitions for that word. That's on average. If you
Yeah.
look the word up in Webster's dictionary, there's 3 different definitions for every word in English language on average. So like when we never talked, we never focused on that. We never focused
I
on
wonder-
spelling the words right, so that we could remain in that dumb sequence that they teach in the school. They teach us to focus on the wrong things really hard so that we don't, you know, and then they mess us up with the nutrition, right? Like that whole program, the school program, the educational program comes with box lunches, which is a bunch of poison, like keeping our kids from the new nutrients and real food and then making them listen to, anyway, we did that last time, about the school system and the spelling. But the point would be if someone's plugged, like if you got your kids in a public school system,
Yeah.
you're plugged into the system.
Yeah.
That's how you know. If you're
Okay.
doing the matrix things and relying upon licensed professionals and registering all of your stuff into the system and paying taxes to the government, you're plugged into a system. And if you think that there's something wrong with people who aren't doing that and that we're the criminals or they're, you know, like they're cheating the system, then you're hypnotized by a system that's poisoning your family members, trying to poison you and your family members and keep you away from all things good. They want to give you pharmaceuticals instead of just natural green plants grown out of the ground with love and care. They want to bottle all your water and make you pay for it while they put poison in it and sell it out of plastic bottles instead of tapping into, you know, water on the ground in your neighborhood. I mean, this is how you know if you're in the matrix.
Yeah.
You're doing these things because you're hypnotized and you're just stuck in a loop.
So then, what's another option?
To start to stop doing those things as fast as they come into your awareness, right? So like stop paying taxes, not because you're a tax avoidance or you're a sovereign or you're like, it's like, think logically about what happens to your tax dollars. The monies that you pay to this organization, it's not even a government organization. It's a corporation made off the coast of Puerto Rico. I mean, like I grew up in Puerto Rico, right? Like it's,
Jekyll Island.
you know, there's so many stories and I haven't verified all the facts and there's teachers on this stuff.
Mhm.
I don't go down the rabbit hole of the things I don't know because then people want to discredit you by saying, oh, he didn't know that fact. Like
Yeah.
he didn't know what he's talking about.
Exactly.
And so I'm not that guy. Like the spelling, I was never good in history. I didn't remember the facts. I forgot that I was a slave. Or somehow like up the family line, somehow up my family line, there were some slaves, which is supposed to still be affecting me today. And I'm supposed to be entitled to affirmative action and extra handouts from the government and food stamp and welfare. If I believe that lie,
Mhm. Yeah.
if I believe that lie,
Yeah.
that's what they would that's where that leads me to today. So I don't know what happened in the past. I wasn't there. And I know like the past, like in just like the last 30 days, It's all been twisted and distorted already, and you can't get the truth straight in the media.
Yeah.
So to believe all these stories we hear about the past, you know, like I think the slavery, I think, what if there was 1,000 slaves? They got the shit beat out of them and were treated like crap. And there was 100,000 that made it over here to the US and got planted into some families that treated them pretty well and helped them like migrate into a new country. And yeah, and they couldn't necessarily leave the property, but it's because they didn't have a car. Like they lived and worked at the people's place, you know, like all those slaves, all those people that were considered slaves because their skin was black and they came over here and they lived in a situation like that. You know, it's not all bad. Like we never talk about how that actually could have been a good thing for someone.
Mm-hmm.
Never.
Yeah.
You ever heard the conversation?
I haven't heard it, but I've definitely contemplated it.
Isn't it crazy?
Yeah.
We haven't heard it somewhere along
Yeah.
the lines. I mean, come on.
Say more about how that's beneficial.
The idea of that coming into your consciousness or your awareness,
Mm-hmm.
because it helps us show that what we're often living on when unconscious is stories and programs and lies from things and events and times which don't really exist. And did they ever exist? Well, we don't know, but
Yeah.
but we're living as if it's the gospel. And
What's an example?
well, another one. So slavery is one, right? So another one would be like, okay, so like let's just say the war, the World War II.
Mm-hmm.
We were told Hitler was this awful guy, right? Like,
Yeah.
and then we come fast forward a few years. Now we realize, you know, it was actually corporations like General Motors and Mobil Oil. That's why we went to war, because they were funding a rebellion because it's a very profitable industry.
Yeah.
And then they're sending, you know, the U.S. is sending fuel to the Germans to fight. You know, I mean, like on these huge $1 million contracts.
Yeah.
Right. Like now, that's public knowledge. That's
Yeah,
not
that's super.
but at the time that was happening, no one would know these things.
Yeah.
Like so, and it's the same thing. It's the same cycle we're going through now. Things are happening right now. None of us are there. Very few of us are there. And then we're fed through the media the story about how it happened when we did. And then that becomes, and you can find opposing stories on every single incident. You know, like it's just crazy.
So then,
you can't rely upon any of that stuff. So I don't in my arguments. It's like people want to spend their whole life saying that, you know, like I felt it was happening in this event this weekend, you know, like that there's a culture, the Black culture has like a grip on people that they feel like they can't rise above, or they use it as an excuse to stay trapped, or they use it as an excuse to say why things aren't, you know, that they have it more difficult. Like they're living at
You know,
this is not true.
it's so interesting that you say that, because I remember when I first came to Costa Rica, I was living in Matapalo, and it was a morning where Neil and I went to the ferry, and we were sitting at the bus stop, and I started looking around and I'm like, holy shit. Like this program is global. Like how they keep people from knowing who they are. And, you know, people just literally operating from the program that they've been programmed with, from their parents and their teachers and their children and their
TV.
Yeah. It was like just an aha moment where I was in a completely different culture, and yet I saw them going to work and, you know, just living that same, it's like a suppressed, it's like something that they put on the consciousness in the way they educate us, that it literally is like a governor on an engine, where you, unless you really like ask God and continue to surrender what I think that I know and open my heart, that it's almost impossible to break through that.
And that brought my mind back to the map of consciousness. It's a vibrational frequency. That's what. That's how they do it. That's how they do it globally, cross borders, they just set a frequency. And the frequency comes in messages of fear. That's what the media does. That's what the news does. That's what the propaganda does. They just try and keep them scared, and they rate this frequency down below 200, and they're taking from consciousness as opposed to expanding consciousness.
Which is directly related to the internal chakra system. So when you're at that consciousness, you're in your lower centers. And you talking about it being suppressed energy, it literally is that. It's literally suppression in the lower centers, and then for an expression to happen, it requires surrendering that fear and that whatever energy, and potentially sadness and shame and guilt and this kind of thing, and just continuing to surrender to then experience an entirely literally view of reality.
So could I offer how somebody, if they just got all that what we just described, and they're like ready to surrender it, and I go, now what next?
Yeah.
Like offer a potential roadmap. Like if you're a entrepreneur, you got a little business, and you're watching this, and you're putting your money in your account, and you know it doesn't feel right to be paying taxes, and you saw a bunch of the stuff, and then boom, you hear this conversation, and you're like, wow, now what do I do? One option would be to join into a private membership association where people talk about these things in a collaboration with consciousness. I mean, that's the reason to have an association, is to claim a certain awareness around the subject, right? And you can exit the matrix consciously by being involved in a private membership association. And one that I operate is called Prosperous Legacy Advisors. And if you want to go to our website, that's what it is, prosperouslegacyadvisors.com. And you can learn how to get in association with other people who are in this consciousness, in this awareness of the matrix. And they want to start bringing their assets or resources out of that jurisdiction to no longer be extracted upon or registered or licensed or monitored or reported or seized, right? Like your IRA account, for instance, right? If you don't do the things right, you take it out too early, and you're not old enough, or all these things, like there's penalties and all this crazy stuff that they want to control your money just so you keep it in that institution longer and are afraid to use it. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
You can move all that stuff out and put it in under, give it back to the rightful owner, happens to be God, and then become a steward. And this is what we would talk about inside of a private membership association of Prosperous Legacy Advisors. Talk about a roadmap on how to actually start to use the right language, start to act as a steward for God and not for the man or Pharaoh or the matrix or whatever you want to call it. Like you woke up, like stop serving that person, stop serving that, stop paying taxes, and start giving, give to Caesar what is Caesar's. If you got agreements, you got to clean all that stuff up. You made the agreements. But once you do that, and going forward, make new agreements with God and tell him how you're going to steward his resources and what you're going to do with his children, and make these things super clear. And then you start operating from a new place in alignment with the law.
Yeah, that's natural law, and that's the that roadmap is it's physical, but there's a spiritual aspect to what you just distinguished, which is like the belief systems and programs and the perceptions and the expectations of the old world, of the matrix. It requires a shift in those expectations, in those opinions, in those perceptions, to even have capacity to physically start moving resources. And so there's this spiritual component where it requires going inside and shifting some things and moving some things, and having a look at why I have the answer I do, and then asking the question of why do I have this answer, and then seeing why I have this answer, and then seeing like, well, what's another answer I could have, and then asking questions and distinguishing the answers I have, which are programs from the matrix, and then from there receiving new perceptions, receiving new expectations and opinions, receiving the truth, receiving natural law and divine guidance, and then from there the movement of the physical assets and the movement of the physical components is an aspect of ease, and
natural law, a
and
natural outflow.
flow. Yeah.
It just happens.
Yeah.
There's no effort.
So there's this spiritual component that's tied right in with it.
Yeah.
I really love what Neil just shared there. I saw another distinction of anytime that I'm not feeling peace, love, and joy, I'm living in the matrix. Because like Bradley was speaking about earlier, the matrix is all about fear and control. So if I'm in peace, love, and joy, and I'm walking as a child of God walks, talks, listens, and just a way of being, now I am in harmony with what the privacy legacy, what is it?
Prosperous legacy measures. Yeah. PLA. Call PLA.
Anyways, on Bradley's website. So you said spiritual, like there's a spiritual component, and it just, when you said that, I was like, it's peace, love, and joy. And then on the other side is death, poverty, hunger, greed, like all of fear, all of that shit. So if you want to stay on that side, just continue using the dollar and just don't do anything. And then, but if you truly want to be free, make sure that you check out Bradley's website, or if you have any questions, reach out to any of us, and we'll be happy to assist in unplugging you from the matrix.
One of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, Bradley's an expert at it. And what's your backstory, Bradley? Like why, like this is what you do as a child of God to, like this is
my gift to,
okay.
I believe that this is what Spirit has gifted me, is the ability to see more clearly than most because of my legal background as an attorney.
So you were an attorney?
Yes.
Okay.
The legal, the law, the man-made law system. And then as a religious zealot, or, like I grew up deep in the church, but not because of my relationship with God, but because it was study of I was in a mega church. I was just plugged into church teaching, but it's not the same. It's like another one of those, it's like saying the doctor is for health is the typical church. This is my story, not everyone's perspective. The typical church, is for spiritual healing. I mean, because it's more of a social club.
Yeah.
And they got the right, they got some good books, all of them do. I mean, they're all teaching good things. But they're still running on a level of consciousness, of awareness of how all the things work that you were talking about. It's limited by teaching what the teacher who taught them, like they go to seminary school and they learn the same teaching from the same few guys, it's all school oriented training on how to make money and run in a big church and get people's butts in the seats so that they give donations. It's run like a business. It's not a way of life. Like, that's what's different about, this place where we're at, Earthquake Village. Like this is like someone would say, oh, there, that's the church. This is not church. This is life. This is life together. We do everything together. We grow the food. Like you don't do these things in the typical church. Like you come and you have an amazing experience with a great band and then go in back to the bookstore and buy retail shit. It's like a social club more thing than it is doing life together. and then they kind of talk about spiritual. That was my experience, and I never had a full awakening of consciousness to it. Because if you awoke, the church should be teaching about what we're talking about. Get out of the matrix, right?
Get
Like,
out of
I mean, if
Babylon,
your
yeah.
church isn't telling you that, if your church is telling you to pay taxes, which is what my church taught, you know, like, it's not a conscious church. I mean, like, you wouldn't be doing this thing.
So, what is this about paying taxes? How is that related to consciousness? And how is that still part of the matrix system?
Well, in the sense that the dollar or the fiat currency is printed by the Federal Reserve, which isn't a government organization, it's just a group of people got together and created something that we all love, and they're, you know, like, that's what the IRS is. The IRS isn't a government agency. It's not our government. It's an exchange house that somehow is contracted with people, and the world has bought the lie that we got to be a part of that system, which you signed up for when you get your Social Security number. You know, like, like we've contracted in to the deal
By our parents.
most time, yeah. And then we're in that. I mean, like, so then you just, when you're awake to it and you stay in it, you know, now you're doing it willfully, right? And so, I mean, like, you can't blame your parents.
Because in the start, you're maybe like unconscious paying taxes, and then you wake up that of what's really going on, and then you're still paying taxes, but now you have a choice.
Bingo. I'm saying, like, this doesn't make, this is not being congruent to your being.
Yes.
I mean, you can't, you know, this is like, well, I just found out that this medication I'm taking is giving me cancer. But I'm gonna keep taking it anyway, you know, because the doctor said I should. That's what happens. People keep going to the medical doctor who they know is sworn to a program of prescribing pharmaceuticals to heal their ailments, instead of choosing to educate themselves and become more conscious that they can find a plant in nature that's going to work 10 times better than that pharmaceutical, and it's not going to kill them.
And it works 10 times better because of the entourage effect. With the prescription industry, there's this isolation technique where you take a plant and then you isolate out a specific molecule, and then that molecule is tested upon for various effects. And then because it's a specific molecule, it can be highly concentrated, which can be detrimental because the body's not used to receiving so much of the compound at once. And so when using a whole plant, there's a phenomena that's the entourage effect, which is there's this full spectrum of experience that is coming through the medicine, through literally eating a piece of freshly harvested spinach. That's pure medicine. That's it's food, and it is healing the body because of the entourage of minerals and nutrients. And so just bringing awareness to like this diversity is we've been we're really diverse on the planet right now, and I think that's on purpose and by design. And
you're talking about the plant species?
I'm talking about the plants, and I'm talking about the humans. I'm talking about the entire Earth. So we're really diverse right now, and I think we're moving in the direction of remembering oneness, of coming together right now, or remembering that we weren't ever separate, and it's just been a perception the whole time. With this isolation technique used in the prescription industry, were we all the same, that it could be highly detrimental to the environment and to each other. And so this diversity has been epic. And what's happening now is I think, this is like my personal opinion, and I'll state that we're moving in the direction of still having that unique purpose. That is our God-given purpose. It's literally our soul expression and maintaining that and remembering that we're also more than that, that we're this whole being connected to everything.
That one of the ways people can express that is by making a declaration that says that when they find out what their gift is, right? Like, this is what God designed me to do. Then you make I call that your gift to your brothers and your sisters. And the tax man or the CPA might call it a business. Right? Because you can start giving it away.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a tendency to want to go charge for it. But you could just ask for donations. Then you get, in God's economy and the economy of abundance, or giving and receiving is what I'm saying, you're going to get the channel, the flow of resources, in my opinion, far outweighs when you go the route of it being a gift from God and not charging for it, but receiving donations for it, as opposed to what I would have done in the Matrix world when I was unconscious, and numb and dumb, programmed up, is teach people how to start an LLC to sell a business to make lots of profit.
Yeah.
And thinking that I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And by the way, make sure when you get that profit, you get to keep coming and visit me, because now we got to figure out tax strategy planning.
See, I just experienced the aspect of this, which is on the receiving aspect. Like, yeah, I made a good amount of money doing egoic things, but then I didn't feel that well inside, and then when I started like really being oriented on focused on God, recently it's been like just in the last 2 weeks, I've received a lot of resources that aren't money, that are resources. That have exponential value. So value, wealth isn't money. It is purpose. It's connection. Very importantly, it's health, like well-being, and wealth is also resources. Like, for example, a home to live in. Like, for example, a horse to horseback ride. That's a resource that has value. That is an aspect of wealth. And so bringing consciousness to, we decide what wealth is. And because of that, we decide when we're wealthy and when we're poor. And there's something very important in what I just said. What's important in what I just said?
Wealth is from and not for.
What's important in what I just said is that we decide.
Yes.
It doesn't matter the outside circumstances. We have our internal barometer of our wealth.
Nobody can choose that for you but you.
Precisely.
That's beautiful.
And the old world, the Matrix is always, and also I just want to bring awareness that we're at 301. It's always for like getting more, like you can never get enough. When we come from the kingdom, that's
You can never give away enough.
Yes. It's a declaration like, hey, I'm wealthy. Like, I got gratitude for connection. I got gratitude for purpose, and for a home, and for food, and for health and fresh air. And
real food.
I'm feeling all like wealthy and abundant right now.
Yes.
Fully receiving. I love all of you. There's a live stream happening every Wednesday at 3:00 p.m. So tune in for that. Be sure and be there. It's worth it. You're worth it.
Do you have anything you want to add, brother?
No, just thank you guys so much again for holding this space and for having these conversations. As you know, it's my favorite subject. We're talking about natural law and how all things work under God's plan. So,
You're welcome. And remember that you're a child of God.